Have you ever paused in the midst of life's chaos and felt a pull, a quiet yet profound whisper in your soul that tells you you're different? It's not your imagination, and it's not coincidence. This is the voice of the divine, a call to something greater. Jesus himself spoke of this truth, warning us that not everyone would carry the sign of the chosen, but those who do would bear a mark that transcends the physical. It's not a visible symbol, but a spiritual seal placed by God's own hand. This sign isn't for the faint of heart. It's a sacred calling, a responsibility, and a testament to God's presence in your life. It's reflected in your faith, in your strength during trials, and in your ability to love even when it's hard. Today, we'll uncover what this means for you through the lens of Scripture and the timeless wisdom of C.S. Lewis. Stay with us to discover what it truly means to be chosen. If this resonates with you, press like, type "I am chosen" in the comments, and subscribe to this channel. Let's journey together into the heart of God's purpose for you. This message could change everything. The unseen mark of God's chosen. The mark of God's chosen is not something you can see with your eyes. It doesn't manifest as a badge, a crown, or a title that sets someone apart in the world's gaze. Instead, it is an imprint on the soul, a spiritual seal that reflects God's hand upon your life. It's the evidence of His presence within you, shaping you into someone extraordinary, not by worldly standards, but by heavenly purpose. This invisible mark is revealed through your faith, faith that remains steadfast when everything around you shakes. When life throws storms your way and the hosts threaten to pull you under, it's this faith that anchors you. It's not just believing in God, it's trusting Him when the path ahead is dark and uncertain. The mark is seen in resilience, the strength to rise again after every fall. Trials and challenges come, but the chosen don't give in to despair. Instead, they grow stronger, their spirits refined like gold through the fire. It's in these moments of adversity that the unseen mark shines brightest, as a beacon of hope to others. And perhaps most tellingly, this mark is reflected in love, the kind of love that mirrors Christ's. It's easy to love when love is returned, but the chosen love, even when it hurts, when it demands forgiveness, or when it requires sacrifice. This love breaks through barriers, defeats His logic, and transforms hearts, because it flows not from human capacity, but from God's endless grace. Imagine carrying this divine favor with you wherever you go. It's a presence that sets you apart, not in arrogance, but in humility and purpose. People may not always recognize it, but they feel it in your actions, your words, and your unwavering spirit. You are a light in the darkness, a testament to God's goodness, chosen to carry His message in a broken world. This mark isn't just a sign of who you are, it's a declaration of whose you are. It tells the world that you belong to the Creator, the King of Kings, and that His plans for you are far greater than you could ever imagine. Carry it with pride, for it is both your identity and your calling. What C.S. Lewis taught about being chosen. C.S. Lewis, one of the most profound Christian thinkers of modern times, often spoke of what it means to be chosen by God. To Lewis, being chosen was not about privilege, but responsibility, a sacred calling that demanded humility and devotion rather than entitlement. He believed that those marked by God were set apart not to elevate themselves, but to serve, to love, and to carry the light of Christ into a dark world. Lewis emphasized that the true sign of being chosen is an inner transformation, a reshaping of the heart and soul by God's hands. This transformation is not immediate, nor is it easy. It's a journey of surrender, of laying down one's pride, and allowing God to work in the depths of one's being. For Lewis, the chosen are not perfect, but they are willing. They understand that their lives are not their own, and that being chosen means walking in obedience, even when the path is steep. Humility is one of the clearest marks of this calling. Lewis described humility not as thinking less of oneself, but as thinking of oneself less. It's the recognition that all good things come from God, and that any strength or success is not for personal glory, but for His. The chosen acknowledge their weaknesses and depend fully on the grace of God to sustain them. They are vessels, emptied of self and filled with His Spirit, ready to pour out love and compassion to those around them. Unwavering devotion is another hallmark of the chosen. This devotion is not merely a Sunday ritual or a fleeting emotional experience. It's a deep, abiding faith that endures through trials, doubts, and temptations. Lewis believed that this kind of faith was a reflection of God's active work in the soul, molding it to align with His will. The chosen live with a quiet yet unshakable resolve, trusting God's plan even when it remains unseen. For Lewis, the beauty of being chosen lies in the paradox. It's not about being exalted, but about being humbled. It's not about being served, but about serving. The chosen carry a responsibility to reflect Christ's love, to live out His teachings, and to be a witness to His grace. In their humility and devotion, they reveal the transformative power of God's call, drawing others toward the light of His kingdom. Divine favor as a transformative force. God's favor is more than a blessing. It is a transformative force that reshapes lives, alters destinies, and reveals His glory through those who walk in His light. To be chosen and favored by God is to carry His presence with you, a presence that changes everything it touches. This favor is not something that can be earned by human effort. It is freely given by a loving Creator who sees beyond our flaws and calls us into a greater purpose. One of the most profound examples of divine favor is found in the story of Esther. An orphaned Jewish girl, Esther seemed unlikely to play a significant role in history. Yet through God's favor, she rose to the throne as queen in a foreign land. It wasn't her beauty or charm that secured her position, but God's hand guiding her path. When her people faced annihilation, Esther's favor granted her the courage and access to intercede with the king. Her bravery, rooted in God's providence, saved an entire nation. Esther's story shows that divine favor doesn't just elevate. It empowers and protects, enabling God's chosen to fulfill their purpose in extraordinary ways. Similarly, the life of Joseph is a testament to the transformative power of favor. Betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, Joseph's life seemed destined for despair. Yet even in the darkest moments, God's favor was upon him. In Potiphar's house, in prison, and eventually in Pharaoh's court, Joseph's integrity and faithfulness brought him success. Genesis 39:2 reminds us, "The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man." God's favor didn't prevent hardship, but used it as a stepping stone for Joseph's ultimate purpose, to save countless lives during a devastating famine. Divine favor acts as both a shield and a guide. It surrounds the chosen like an impenetrable fortress, protecting them from harm and paving the way for God's will to be accomplished. Psalm 5:12 declares, "Surely, Lord, You bless the righteous. You surround them with your favor as with a shield. This favor is not merely about personal gain, but about positioning God's people to carry out His plan. Doors that seem firmly shut are opened, and opportunities beyond human imagination unfold because of God's favor. What sets divine favor apart is its ability to thrive, even in chaos. Esther faced the threat of genocide, and Joseph endured betrayal and imprisonment. Yet God's favor turned their trials into triumphs. This favor defies logic. It's unmerited, unstoppable, and undeniable. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary, the overlooked into the significant, and the broken into the beautifully redeemed. For those marked by divine favor, life's challenges become testimonies of God's power. It's not about avoiding difficulty, but about walking through it with the assurance that God is working all things for good. His favor changes lives, protects His chosen, and reveals His glory to the world. Trust in His favor, for it is the key to unlocking your God-ordained destiny. Trusting God in times of uncertainty. Life often brings seasons of uncertainty, times when the path ahead is shrouded in darkness and the weight of unanswered questions presses heavily on the heart. It's in these moments that trusting God becomes both the greatest challenge and the greatest necessity. Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us of this profound truth. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Trusting God doesn't mean we will always understand His ways. Instead, it's about surrendering our need for control and believing that His plan is perfect, even when it feels incomprehensible. Like a child holding a parent's hand in the dark, trust requires us to let go of fear and follow where He leads. The Bible is filled with stories of those who chose to trust God in the face of uncertainty and pain. One such example is Abraham, called by God to leave his homeland and journey to an unknown destination. Despite not knowing where he was going, Abraham obeyed, trusting in God's promise to make him the father of nations. His faith was rewarded as God fulfilled His covenant, blessing Abraham with descendants as numerous as the stars. Another powerful example is Daniel in the lion's den. Faced with death for his unwavering faith, Daniel trusted in God's protection. His trust wasn't based on the absence of danger, but on the presence of a God who is greater than any threat. As a result, God delivered him, shutting the mouths of the lions and demonstrating His power to save. Trusting God also means believing in His timing. Joseph endured years of betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, but he never wavered in his faith. In the end, God elevated him to a position of authority, using Joseph to save nations from famine. What seemed like setbacks were divine setups, shaping him for a purpose far greater than he could have imagined. When uncertainty strikes, remember that God sees the bigger picture. He is not limited by time or circumstance, and His promises are always fulfilled. Trusting Him doesn't mean life will be without pain, but it does mean you are never alone. He walks beside you, guiding your steps and leading you to a place of peace and purpose. Choose to trust Him today, for He is faithful, and His plans for you are good. Perseverance and faith in trials. Trials are an inevitable part of life, But for God's chosen, they serve a deeper purpose. The pain we endure, the battles we face, and the obstacles in our path are not without meaning. Through perseverance and faith, God refines us, strengthens us, and prepares us for the greater purpose He has designed. The story of Joseph is one of the most compelling examples of perseverance in the face of overwhelming adversity. Betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, Joseph found himself in Egypt, far from home and stripped of everything he held dear. Yet he never abandoned his faith in God. Even when falsely accused and thrown into prison, Joseph continued to trust in God's plan. It was through these very trials that God was shaping him for a monumental purpose. In time, Joseph rose to a position of power, becoming Pharaoh's right-hand man. He was instrumental in saving countless lives during a devastating famine, including the very brothers who had betrayed him. Joseph's story reminds us that what the enemy means for harm, God can use for good. Genesis 50:20. Another example of perseverance is Daniel, who remained faithful to God even when faced with death. Thrown into a den of lions for refusing to compromise his faith, Daniel's unwavering trust in God became his salvation. God shut the mouths of the lions, sparing Daniel and demonstrating His power to deliver those who trust in Him. This miraculous act not only saved Daniel, but also brought glory to God, as even the pagan king acknowledged His sovereignty. These stories show us that trials are not the end of the road, but part of the journey. Like gold refined in fire, our struggles shape us, burning away impurities and revealing a stronger, more faithful spirit. Perseverance builds character, and character builds hope. Romans 5:3-4. God does not waste our pain. Every setback, every hardship, and every tear is part of His divine preparation. Through our struggles, He teaches us to rely on Him, strengthens our faith, and equips us to fulfill His purpose. When you face trials, remember that you are not alone. God walks with you, and His plans for you are greater than anything you can imagine. Stand firm in faith. Persevere through the storm, and trust that He is working all things for your good. Grace, the unmerited favor of God. Grace is one of the most profound gifts God offers to humanity. It is unearned, undeserved, and freely given, a reflection of His infinite love and mercy. Unlike human rewards, which are often tied to effort or merit, grace flows from God's heart, not because of who we are, but because of who He is. It is through grace that we are saved, redeemed, and invited into His eternal kingdom. Ephesians 2:8-9 beautifully reminds us, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." One of the most inspiring stories of grace and redemption in the Bible is that of Ruth. A Moabite widow, Ruth's situation seemed hopeless after the death of her husband. Yet she chose faithfulness over despair. Ruth remained devoted to her mother-in-law, Naomi, declaring, "Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Ruth 1:16. In her humility and loyalty, Ruth stepped into the field of Boaz, a man of wealth and integrity, unaware that her faithfulness was leading her to divine favor. Through God's grace, Ruth was redeemed and restored. Boaz became her kinsman redeemer, marrying her and securing her future. But the story doesn't end there. Ruth, a once destitute outsider, became part of the lineage of Jesus Christ, showing how God's grace transforms lives beyond human expectation. Ruth's journey is a testament to how God's favor, activated by faithfulness, brings redemption and blessings that ripple through generations. Grace isn't just about receiving blessings, it's about being transformed by them. It's the power that turns a heart of stone into a heart of flesh, the force that takes what is broken and makes it whole. When we embrace grace, we are empowered to live in alignment with God's will, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. God's grace is an invitation to stop striving and start trusting. It reminds us that His blessings are not earned by perfection, but are gifts of His love. When you walk in faith, as Ruth did, you position yourself to receive God's unmerited favor. Trust in His grace and let it renew your spirit, redeem your past, and guide you toward a future filled with His promises. In God's hands, grace is not just a gift, it is the gateway to abundant life. You are chosen. You are not here by accident. Every moment of your life, every trial, every victory has led you to this truth. You are chosen by God. You carry His mark, not because of your perfection, but because of His grace. You are a living testimony of His love, His power, and His purpose. Like Joseph, like Ruth, like Esther, God has placed His hand upon you for something greater than you can imagine. Remember, being chosen is not about privilege. It's about responsibility. It's about walking in faith when the path is unclear, standing firm when trials come, and loving when it's the hardest thing to do. It's about reflecting God's light in a world that desperately needs hope. If this message has stirred something in your spirit, don't let it fade. Take action today. Comment below with the words, "I am chosen," and declare your faith boldly. Like this video to help spread this truth to others, and share it with someone who needs encouragement. Most importantly, subscribe to this channel and join a community of believers who are committed to walking in God's purpose together. You are chosen, you are loved. Now go forth in the confidence of God's favor and fulfill the destiny He has prepared for you.